Hello, and welcome to another episode of At the Root with Greg Kiper. This is the place where we get to the root of connection. Connection with ourselves, with that inner you, and connections with others in the relationships we find ourselves in, with parents and family members, employers, employees, friends, teachers, mentors, you name it. We are in a state of connection every second of every day. So how does connecting work for you? What is the state of your connections? I'm a licensed psychotherapist, a certified holistic life coach, and a metaphysical teacher. I believe in the connection of mind, body, and spirit in order for each of us to be all we can be. Join me as I look into what makes our connections work. Now, sometimes they don't. We have recently transitioned from doing a live radio show each week, which we then presented as a podcast episode, to focusing on just the podcast. We no longer are on the radio, but you can find us on your favorite podcast platform or at my website, kipercounseling.com, or each episode is posted on our YouTube channel, Connection Through Awareness with Greg Kiper. Just look for At the Root with Greg Kiper. The last time we were together, I spoke about finding attunement in our relationships. We've talked a lot about attunement, the reciprocal exchange of sensitivities and information. It is at the heart of the emotional connection we seek and strive for in our engagements with others. The key term in this definition is reciprocal exchange. The connection cannot be one-sided. It is an exchange, a reciprocal exchange of emotional depth and meaning. The information and its accompanying emotional meaning are going both ways, back and forth. When this happens, not only does the information get shared accurately, but the intent and meaning behind the share is clear and understood. We all know what it's like to not listen carefully and miss important information or instructions being shared with us, or maybe to have others miss information we're sharing. This often comes across as disrespectful and can cause all kinds of troubles, and depending on the fallout, cause emotional reactions. We learn that to avoid these issues, we want to hone our awareness to listen carefully to the details of the information being shared so we can eliminate mistakes and process the information accordingly. When I mention attunement in our relationships, it is more than just the exchange of information. It is also the exchange of sensitivities. So when we are seeking attunement, we have to get beyond the superficial exchange of information. And in the same way, we want to hone our awareness to listen carefully to the details of the information being shared. We want to hone our awareness to listen carefully for the emotional content and meaning of what is being shared. This is typically where interactions fall apart in close relationships. We may get the information coming from our partner, but we miss where they're coming from by not tuning in emotionally or making assumptions. And I'll venture to say that by not going all in with the exchange, tuning in for the meaning and intent, we're missing most of the information too. As long as the relationship stays misattuned, the partners grow farther and farther apart. And after a while, it can seem like they were never tuned or together at all. I see couples who can be finely tuned in to the exchange of information. There's an intricate web of discussion of chores and shopping and getting kids to rehearsals and practices and doctor's appointments, and this communication can flow fairly seamlessly. The superficial functioning of the family is happening. And it's just that, superficial, devoid of meaning for the couple. When the information sharing rubs someone the wrong way, reactions happen, and the superficial functioning gets way out of whack. This is when the exchange of sensitivities is forced upon the relationship, crying out for some semblance of attunement, but generally to no avail, as neither party is versed in the awareness required to get there. The exchange of sensitivities is raw and hurtful because the intent and meaning is lost and not willing to be found, in the moment at least. If there are children involved, this misattunement is on fine display for their young sponge-like minds to behold and internalize, ready to perpetuate into another generation when they get older. Perhaps just as you got modeled this type of behavior in your childhood. Last time, we talked about taking that realization of disconnect in our relationship and figuring out what to do with it. Daunting as it may seem, it's fixable with a mutual desire to do so. It starts with both parties admitting that they've got a part in the mess, even if they can't see it at the moment. This is difficult for many. Years and years of feeling wronged and not being validated for those feelings on either side results in the construction of elaborate walls of protection, defense, difficult to get around or through. It becomes a standoff, a perpetual standoff. I mentioned mutual curiosity last time. Both partners going all in with engagement of the issue at hand. Accepting that we've got a problem and we have to get to the bottom of it. When we're curious, we want to know something. We are open to discovery and learning. Mutual curiosity means we are not only curious about our part, but our partner's part in these interactions as well. This is critical if we were to do this work without judgment or blame. First, we need to find out about the role we are playing and for what, and to do that, we must do our research into who gave us the part and when. And we must look at all the rehearsing we've done and we've been doing for this role over all these years. It can be helpful to look at our attachment systems. Each of us are born with an attachment system. All mammals are, for that matter, and probably other species. Mammals, of which humans are, have an innate built-in need for connection, as well as safety and satisfaction. So, from the start, we have a desire and a need for connecting with others. We're calling this our attachment system. Interpersonal neurobiologist Dan Siegel says that this inborn system evolves in ways that influence and organize motivational, emotional, and memory processes with respect to significant caregiving figures. Emotional transactions between children and their caregivers form experiences that are encoded in implicit memory as expectations and then as mental models of attachment, which help a child feel an internal sense of a secure base in the world, or not. Attachment establishes an interpersonal relationship that helps the immature brain use the mature functions of the parent's brain to organize its own processes. Scary thought, right? What are we modeling to our children? What were the emotional transactions between your caregivers and you? What were they like when you were a child? There are two broad qualitative terms used to describe the nature of these attachments: secure and insecure. Secure attachment means that These emotional transactions between the caregiver and the child were positive enough interactions of support and love to help the child develop feelings of safety and learn emotional regulation and resilience. The caregivers were emotionally available, perceptive, and responsive to the needs and mental states of the child. Insecure attachment means the emotional transactions were not supportive of the child developing these feelings of safety and resilience. Caregivers were emotionally unavailable or inconsistently available, perceptive, and responsive to the needs of the child. In working with couples early in the process, it is helpful for me to help the partners discover their attachment systems. This will become significant in their individual realizations of their parts in the disconnect or misattunement. Finding insecure attachment in one or both will set the stage for engaging in mutual curiosity and understanding that we have a problem and it stems from unconscious patterning from our past. So if you remember from last time, I'm meeting with Tony and Sarah separately this time, and this discovery will be a part of these individual sessions. So let's start with one of them as I explain attachment systems further. I welcomed Sarah to the next session. It worked out best for their schedules that she be the first, and we settled in to get started. I asked her, "What was it like for you two after you left here last week? Did our time together carry on in your conversations during the week?" She replied, "We both commented that we thought it was positive, and although we didn't know what to expect yet, we felt, relieved, I guess, that we were doing something. I remember he chided me about bringing up the dishwasher loading. He thought it was a stupid thing to bring up. I remember he seemed a bit embarrassed about it. He almost took offense," I said. "Oh, it upset him. I just told him that I thought it showed how silly some of the stuff we argue about is." It's often the case that these little things spark reactions. They are just ways of hiding what is really going on, and very telling, actually, I smiled. "I imagine they are," she agreed, and shook her head in acknowledgement. I continued. Last time, I mentioned attachment systems, and I want to explain more of what I mean about that and then explore what your system is like. "I suppose this means going back and digging around in my childhood?" she asked. I replied, "Yes, that's certainly part of it. I hope that's okay." "Sure, why not?" she grinned. "It's not the best of me, though. What do you mean by attachment system?" All of us, as humans, have an innate need for safety, satisfaction, and connection. So we're born with that need. That inborn need motivates an infant to seek being close to caregivers and to establish communication with them. Evolutionarily, this improved a child's chance for survival. Over time, this attachment evolves and establishes an interpersonal relationship with caregivers and helps in the child's brain development using the caregiver's more mature brain to learn to organize the child's own brain processes. So basically, the child is taking cues from the caregivers, and in the early stages, almost exclusively so. Emotional transactions between the caregiver and the child will mold the child's learning of regulating emotional states. Children are basically helpless and look to the caregiver for protection and safety, right? And sustenance and physical contact. As such, The attachment system is particularly sensitive to danger, and disturbances in the emotional state often result in anxiety and fear or a threat of separation and abandonment. Sarah was nodding her head in agreement as she listened. Bottom line, Sarah, is that the emotional content and context of the words and behaviors of caregivers greatly influence their children's ability to learn to deal with their own emotions. And more than just emotional development, the quality of the attachment to the caregiver is one of the factors, a central factor, actually, that serves to create the foundation for how the child's mind develops. No wonder I'm so screwed up, she interjected. I didn't say anything, waiting for her to continue. After a pause, she did. There wasn't much emotional stability in my childhood. Emotions were all over the place. What is your earliest memory of your family, Sarah? As far back as you can remember. Oh, gosh. I don't know. We were always together doing something. Well, not always, but a lot of the time. We'd all go camping, I remember, but sometimes Mom would leave. She said she had to work. She took trips for her work sometimes, not always. She still does to this day. Takes off with friends and leaves Dad at home, goes on trips without him. I don't know why she does that. Doesn't bother me like it used to. I mean, it wasn't too bad because Dad was always there. I made an attempt to get her back on track. Give me 5 adjectives that best describe your relationship with your mother, as far back as you can remember. Oh, well, loving, caring, busy. She was always busy. Oh, that's not about the relationship. Well, it kind of is. She was always there for us. You just had to catch her at the right time. Teaching. Is that an adjective? You know what I mean. She would help us with our homework. I don't know. I can't think of any more right now. She is still quite the teacher, always wanting to help me and the kids learn whatever, when she's not busy traveling. What about your dad? I asked. Oh, gentle, kind, and caring. He was all of those. But he had his hands full with Mom, still does. She is what he calls high maintenance. I remember he would calmly fill in when she was busy, and she goes off on these trips and leaves him. He probably likes it as he gets a break. She acts jealous when he just wants some time to himself. And yeah, he's great with our kids, always has been. Steady Eddie, while Mom can be all over the place. How do you think your relationship with your parents has shaped your personality and the way you parent? I asked. Oh gosh. I hope I'm sharing the kind of love my folks had with my siblings and I with my kids. I think it's so important to be involved in their lives. I do everything I can to help with their teachers at school, and I volunteer to be a part of their activities so they know I'm there for them. I work a lot, but I make a point to be there for them every school night I can to touch base and interact. Tony tries to help when I ask him, but most of the time I think he just gets in the way. And I'm not sure he understands their needs like I do. Well, understanding desires and needs is important, I interjected, wanting a bit more from her on this front. It can be hard sometimes because I don't think kids really know what they want all the time, and they need guidance from a parent, whether they want it or not. Sounds like you and Tony have different ideas on parenting, I asked. we're not always on the same page. He'll give in to them more without looking at the big picture. I don't know if you've noticed yet, but he doesn't do emotions very well. What do you mean? I asked. He gets irritable easily, so we don't really know where he's coming from much of the time. He doesn't have much patience with me and the kids. I can take it, but I don't like seeing it happening with the kids. What do you mean you can take it? Oh, I'm so used to him not giving me much appreciation or assurance. I need that stuff, so I try to make sure I give it to the kids as much as I can. Time was running out for the session, so I thanked Sarah for sharing, and we ended with me pointing out that next time the session would be for Tony and I. Sarah's early years with her family created her insecure attachment base that has carried with her into her adult life. Her mother's insecurity, dealing with a lot of anxiety about having her needs met and feeling insecure in being loved or lovable, helped to mold the same in Sarah. Doesn't appear that her mom knew when the kids needed their own space and intruded with her own emotional baggage, relying on external input and overactivated emotional content. Appears Sarah is doing much the same with her own children. Her dad took the back seat, doing what he could, but realizing early on he could never provide for her mom the emotional stability she so craved. Next time, we'll dive in more to these attachment styles and what they mean in our relationships. And we'll see what Tony has to offer about his attachment system. Before I go, I want to remind you all that connection is about awareness. When we are aware of thoughts and feelings, when we are aware of the experiences that are going on in our mind, we are able to connect on a conscious level, avoiding the unconscious patterning of our past. When we have that kind of awareness, we are in the present moment, acting from the now. Unfortunately, that isn't the norm for most of us. So if we want to connect from a place of awareness in the here and now, we need to learn how to do that. And it takes practice. I want to set you up to learn this. I would like for you to go to my website, kipercounseling.com, and go to the resources page. Download the MP3 file, Starting Your Day with Awareness. There's an additional file titled Why Awaken to Awareness available as a listening file or a video to watch. And it explains the Awaken, Starting Your Day with Awareness exercise. I'd like for you to use this exercise every morning you can for a while, and you'll notice your awareness for connection grow. It will take some time, but repetition and practice. So that's all for now. Tune in next time as we look more at attachment systems and we learn about Tony. And remember, everyone, stay aware out there.